Are you struggling to make a change? Do you find yourself like doing the same things over and over? I want to introduce a topic, an idea, a concept to you that can make a big difference, right? It's not you. What if it's the map, right? What map are you using? What the hell does that even mean? How does it impact your journey? Let's talk about it. So, last video I did was also, travel related. So, and I love to beat the hell out of a metaphor. So, the last video, we talked about this idea of powerboat versus sailboat, like how we're getting to where we want to go. This time, I want to talk about the map, right? What we expect, right? And so for many of us, we have a map to what this change looks like. And, we've tried to make a change, something like quitting alcohol, right? We try and we have an idea of what it should look like. We think we know exactly what it should look like. And so we try, and then we have all of these quote unquote failed attempts, right? And those attempts come with a lot of baggage, right? Like we know how it felt. We know, what it was like to like be doing well and then maybe to not succeed. And like we've got all of this information coming our way, right? The emotions that we're feeling there, landmarks of like, oh, this is what it's like to have a Tuesday without drinking. This is what it's like to go through a weekend without drinking. And so what we do is we create these maps in our minds of what the process is like, what it is. And while this is understandable, and it's part of what our brains do, right? Our brains make meanings out of things. That's how our brains help us live, right? Like the fact that, my brain, I don't know, tells me to look both ways before I cross the street. That's how I can be here today making this video, right? So we use this information. This information comes into us, and then we use that to create a map of how things are going to go. So when we make another attempt, right? When we go again, we're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get back on the horse. I'm going to quit drinking. When we make this next attempt, we bring all of this experience with us, right? All of this stuff is sort of added to our map, right? The map being like how to get from A to Z, right? How do we want to navigate our way to our end goal? And we use this past experience to navigate forward. And this makes a ton of sense, right? This is like literally how things work. And it makes a ton of sense that this would be how we go about this. Here's the kicker, right? For many of us, the way we tried before isn't getting us where we want to go. And so we almost end up using this map that is defective. It's like, for those of you who are old enough to remember navigating without phones, we used to have these things, called TomTom or Garmin, right? There were these like GPS units. You would like put, like, I remember my grandfather had one and he put it on his dashboard and it had these like sandbags to weight it down. And it was this really crazy thing that like for the first time ever, you could navigate by satellite. But here's the thing, because it wasn't like a phone, it wasn't updating all the time. And so every once in a while, and you should do it pretty often, you'd have to pull this thing out of your car, bring it to your computer, plug it in, and update the maps, right? Because then you would get like, things that had changed, traffic patterns being different, stuff like that, right? This is the analogy I'm going for, is that like the way we change, we need to be constantly updating this map. But for many of us, the map is full of dead ends, right? So it's like, yeah, I might not know how to, to not turn that way. I might not know that this thing doesn't work for me. I might now know that like, hey, when I travel somewhere, I need to have a plan. Or I might know, what, like when stress pops up, I can go for a walk and feel better in 5 minutes. There are things that I have learned that have improved my map. But the map doesn't have all of the answers. As a matter of fact, a lot of what maps are a bunch of dead ends, right? This is why we need to be willing to create a new map. I told you I was going to beat the shit out of this analogy, right? We need to be willing to continue to update our maps. We need to be willing to be open to the unknown. So why would we use this as a guide, right? If it's full of dead ends and like even if it has good stuff, like it hasn't gotten us where we want to go. Right? How do we use that previous experience as a guide if the previous experience is getting us to this place where we feel like we are failing over and over and over and over? And yet this is what I see, right? People doing the same things over and over, obviously wanting to get to where they want to go. They stick to the old map because this is how I've done it before, or, my Uncle Bob did it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. But yet, we all know that if we keep following the same route, you'll keep getting to the same place. So what am I saying, right? Like, I say stuff like this and I hear people saying, but wait, like, don't you learn lessons along the way? Absolutely. And I think that, like, the map that you use should be informed by those lessons, but it's also very important to be open to the unknown. This is the key point. It's very important to be open to what you are learning new this time. We all have this idea in our head, and there's a massive cultural thing of like what it means to quit drinking and live sober and all of this stuff, right? It's informed by things we've been seeing our whole lives, like on TV and movies. Like, it's just like it's all over the place. But the reality is that's made up, right? That is a map, that is an idea that's in your head, but it isn't the only way. And being open to the unknown, being open to things that might actually work for us, it changes the experience. You don't have to focus only on the map, right? You can use these things that you've learned to live differently, but if you're also open to new things, to other experiences, if you allow yourself to explore, right? To look around, to update your understanding of the terrain, right? To do the, I guess, mental or life equivalent of unplugging my grandfather's TomTom and updating it with the computer. Like, if you allow yourself to update these things, that's how this process works. And so it's these two things together. It's the map we've developed, the map we've sort of inherited of like, all right, here's how this process works, but not treating it as gospel. Also weaving in the experiences that we're having, right? Finding that like, oh, this method didn't work for me. I want to go in this direction. Or, man, I never knew this was the case. I want to change that. So I want to ask you, like, as you're doing this work, like, what map are you using? Are you using a map and sticking to it so closely that you just keep getting to the same place over and over and over? Or are you open to editing that map? Right? Are you opening to learning new things, right? New shit has come to light. Are you including that in your journey? Because when we do these things, when we figure out the stuff that hasn't worked for us, but then we are open to new experiences, this is how things change. So if you can do that for yourself, if you find yourself in this same loop, ask yourself the question, where on my map isn't working for me, and where can I open up to new possibilities and explore those new ways of being? It's when we start doing that that we actually start making the progress we want to make.